It's 5:30, and let's get started. Okay. I would like to welcome everyone here for the 86th annual meeting of the Cherryland Electric Co-op. My name is Dave Schweitzer, and I am president of the Cherryland Board of Directors. I just have to say something about the weather, because last year at this time it was in the 40s and rainy and windy, and we live in Michigan, so that's expected, isn't it? So I'm glad it's 80 degrees and windy out today. Over 150 members have submitted their ballots, and therefore a quorum is present. So we will dispatch business in accordance with the bylaws. In addition to the members here in person, we'd like to recognize and welcome those members who are joining us via Facebook and on YouTube. And now, if you are able, we'd ask you to rise as the color guard from the Traverse City Young Marines presents our nation's colors, followed by the national anthem. Thank you. I want to thank the Traverse City Young Marines. They've become an appreciated addition to our annual meeting over the last few years, and we thank the guys for being here. I'd also like to take a moment, if you are a veteran or member of a Gold Star family, would you please rise so we can acknowledge your service? And now I would like to welcome Director Melinda Lautner to the podium to lead us in the invocation.
Okay. Thank you. Heavenly Father, we ask you today for your guidance, wisdom, and support as we begin this meeting. Help us to engage in meaningful discussion, allowing us to nurture the bonds of community. Fill us with your grace and guide us with your infinite wisdom as we deliberate upon these important matters today. And we continue to remind us that all that we do here today, all that we accomplish, is in pursuit of truth for the greater glory of you, for the service of humanity. We ask these things in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thank you, Melinda. As members of the Cooperative, I really encourage you to get involved in today's meeting. There will be a period of time after the meeting where you can ask questions or comment. And you can, for those watching online, you can do it on Facebook and YouTube in the comments sections. If you're inside watching the kids in the arcade and bowling, there are Cherryland staff members with red shirts on by the pool tables. Give them your questions or your comments, and they'll run them out here for us to answer their questions. At this time, I want to introduce the board. Our board of directors, our senior vice president, Gabe Schneider, secretary, Valerie Handy, treasurer, Tom Pelt, director, Melinda Lautner, director, Terry Lautner, and one of our directors is not here due to a personal conflict, and that's Dean Adams. We have our attorney, Greg Jenkins, the one with the suit and tie on down there. I think he's the only one that has a tie on today. And of course, our CEO, Rachel Johnson. We also have some special guests with us today. We have with us a representative from U.S. Congressman Jack Bergman's office, Melanie Collinsworth. I don't know where she is. There she is. Okay. State Senator John DeMoose's Deputy Chief of Staff, Dakota Baker. And State Representative John Roth. Also joining us, and I have a few things to say about this, we have some representatives of the management staff from Wolverine Power. And for those of you who don't know much about Wolverine, if you're a new member, Wolverine is the co-op that produces our power that Cherryland distributes to all of you. And I've got to say something about this management team. The last year, you don't know how fortunate you are to have a team like this. Not the entire team is here. But Rachel's going to talk about the Palisades nuclear plant later. And during COVID, we had something called Operation Warp Speed to get the vaccine on the market as soon as possible. These guys were Operation Warp Speed times 2. What they did to get this thing going was amazing. They crossed political lines. There was bipartisan work, if you can believe that, not only in D.C., but at the state level and the local level. The regulatory issues, the legal issues, working with the Nuclear Regulatory Commission and the Department of Energy and the governor's office, they got it done. And these folks here represent, not all of them are here that had a lot of input. You normally don't hear a lot about them. They don't get the accolades and the exposure that we do. But I'm going to introduce part of their team today. President and CEO Eric Baker. Chief Operating Officer Zach Anderson. Vice President of Communications and Member Services Casey Clark. Vice President of Administration Don Kuhn. Vice President of Accounting and Finance Dustin Daniel. And the VP of Regulatory Affairs Mr. Tom King. Thank you so much. You don't know how fortunate you are to have a management team like this that got this through in record time. It's an amazing story. And hopefully it's an MBA case study is what I think it is. We also want to acknowledge our Cherryland Cares Board. And just as a reminder, the Cherryland Cares Board, when you get your bill every month, you have the opportunity to round up to the nearest dollar. And what that does is this board takes those dollars and they distribute it to various charitable organizations throughout our service area. Over the years, those quarters and dimes and pennies and nickels have added up to tens of thousands of dollars. So if you haven't been part of that program, I urge you to consider it and pull one of us aside, and we'll show you how to do that later on if you want to do that. We have some other, the Cherryland Cares Board. I want to introduce them. I don't know if they're here or not, but Mike Kenny, can you raise your hand if you're here? Mike Kenny, Karen Thor, let's see her, Connie Denowith, let's see here, Rebecca Sanford, and Chet Janik. I don't see any of them here, but we want to thank them for serving in our board on the Cherryland Cares Board. We have some other guests that we will be hearing about later, and that's the Traverse City West robotics team. If you haven't had a chance to look at what they've done over there on my right to your left before the meeting, go over and check it out. What an amazing story. We're going to hear from them later about their competition, not only in Michigan, but also down in Texas. What a great story. And you'll be very proud of them. We have some past board members in the audience as well. I know John Olson is here. John. And John Zickert. There he is. It's good to see you guys. And now every year at the annual meeting, we award students and 2 adults an annual scholarship. It's a $4,000 scholarship. And Cherryland is really proud to support and encourage the education pursuits of these scholarship winners. And we wish them all the best in their educational endeavors. What I'd like to do is name them. Let's hold our applause till I'm done. And the first 3 student scholarships are $4,000 apiece. So the first one is Caden Cowell. Would you please stand? Not here. Okay. Next one, Caden Cowell's from Traverse City Central, by the way. Mallory Lowe from Leland Public School. Okay. Florida Zickert from Benzie. And we have 2 adult $1,000 scholarships. Genevieve Bramer. Is she here? And Walter Ratajczak. It's Walker, not, right? Well, with a last name like that, I don't know. Did I get it right? Okay, good. Well, congratulations to all of you on that. I would also like to thank the Grand Traverse County Sheriff. They're not here right now. They're usually parked in the back, but as you can well imagine, they got called off on something more urgent. We're expecting them to be back later on, depending on the severity of the accident that they're at. We want to also thank our incredible hosts, the Incredible Mo's. And they're a fantastic team. We're just thrilled to be back here. It's a great venue for this. It's perfect. And so we're just really happy that we can work with them. And finally, last but not least, you see all these red shirts that we're wearing. I'm not going to name names because I'll probably miss somebody. But as you know, in organizing something like this, the entire Cherryland team has put this together. They've been working on it for months. As a board member, all I got to do is walk up, they hand me the stuff, everything's in place. But there's a lot of details to be done, and I just want to give a really good round of applause to all the Cherryland employees, the staff, the engineers, the linemen that put this together and got all their equipment out here. So let's give them all a good round of applause. And now I'd like to ask our secretary, Valerie Handy, to read the notice of meeting and proof of mailing.
Hi, everyone. I, Valerie Handy, am the Secretary of the Board of Directors for Cherryland Electric Cooperative. I attest that on May 1st, 2024, Cherryland mailed a notice of annual meeting to each of its members by third-class mail. The notice of annual meeting was contained within the May edition of the Michigan Country Lines magazine and provided that the meeting is to be held on June 13th, 2024. A copy of the notice of annual meeting will be kept by Cherryland as part of its corporate records.
Thank you, Val. At this time, I will ask the secretary to read the minutes of the previous annual meeting or accept a motion, that's a hint, from the membership to dispense with the reading. Do I have a motion? Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The motion carries. Now I'll ask for approval of the minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes? I have a motion. I have a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Next, I'd like to introduce our corporate attorney, Mr. Greg Jenkins.
Thank you. At this time, we will move forward with the election of the 2 open board seats. Any member that was in line at the ballot box at 5:30 and is still in line and would like to cast a vote may do so, otherwise the polls are closed. Do we have any questions at all with respect to the balloting or the balloting process in general? Seeing none, which is always a good answer, I ask that the election committee proceed to complete the counting of the ballots in accordance with the bylaws. I would also like to thank all of those members for their work here this afternoon. They are Marvin and Nancy Scott, James Vanderlee, Kenton Anderson, Ron Dilley, Linda Burton, and Julia Newcomb. Again, I appreciate all the work that you have done here. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Next up is our treasurer's report from Board Treasurer Tom Van Pelt.
Good afternoon. The unconsolidated balance sheet of Cherryland Electric Cooperative Incorporated as of December 31st, 2023, and the related unconsolidated statements of income, equities, and cash flows for the year then ended have been prepared by management in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles and include all auditor adjustments by the CPA firm of the Raymond Group. A copy of the audited consolidated balance sheet and statement of operations for the year ending December 31st, 2023 is included in the May issue of the Michigan County Lines magazine. Audited financial statements are available at the cooperative offices upon request.
Thank you, Tom. May I please ask for a motion to approve the treasurer's report? Okay, we have a motion, seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Our next guest, as I mentioned before, we have the Traverse City West Robotics team here today, and they're going to talk about their successes. We are proud to be a sponsor of that team, and they've been very successful nationwide. We have our co-captains to talk to us about that. Jackson Hackstetler and Rosalind Zalewski. Please come on up and tell us your story.
Hi, my name is Jackson Oxteller. I'm one of the team co-captains of the West Robotics team.
Hi, I'm Rosalind Zalewski, also co-captain of the TC Titans robotics team.
First of all, I want to thank Cherryland Electric for having us out here today and for their generous sponsorship this season. All of the sponsorship from all of our sponsors really helps us to compete. As you can see, our robot over there costs a lot, and sponsors like Cherryland Electric make it possible. So thank you to them. I just wanted to talk a little bit about what we do as a robotics team. So we are the West Senior High robotics team. So we have students from all 4 grades at West Senior High School. Every year, at the start of the year, this organization called FIRST will reveal a game that we have to play, and then 6 weeks later, we will have to compete in that game. So in those 6 weeks, we have to design, prototype, build, and iterate and test an entire 150-pound competition robot to play this game. And this year we've had a lot of success. At our first competition, we placed, I want to say 16th out of 40 teams. So at every competition, there are 40 teams. They compete in qualifying matches for ranking scores. And then based on the ranking, matches are selected at on the final day of competition. And we placed 16th at our first competition in Battle Creek. At our second competition in Traverse City, we were, I believe, ranked 6th, but we did win the competition. So it was great to win on our home turf here in Traverse City. Our second competition our third competition was states down in Saginaw, which we qualified for based on our performance in the season. We ended up ranking 6th there as well, and we made it to the semifinals, and we're one match away from the finals in our division. And then we went to Houston, Texas to compete at the world competition, which is 600 teams from around the world all come to one place and compete in competitive robotics. And it is amazing. It's this huge convention center, 600 teams of like 50 people each, just all doing the same thing, all doing robotics. And it's a huge inspiration to go and talk to all these teams about what they're doing, learn what students from around the world are doing. And as students on the team, we have a lot of development on our real-world skills. We do a lot of like real-world stuff, which Rosalind's going to talk about.
Yeah, so in regards to how our team actually functions, we have a bunch of different sub-teams that every single member has an opportunity to participate in. I myself am part of the manufacturing and mechanical team, and then I've also led the scouting team. And we have several other sub-teams, like we have business, we have electrical, we have mechanical, as I mentioned, and each one of those is divided into further sub-teams that each do something specific on our team. And we all really work together to create what is basically a small business. And it really works to inspire kids to get into STEM and inspire people to develop real-world skills that are extremely important in later life. And we can all do this from the high school. But there's even teams that are younger than us. For example, there are the West Middle School teams, the FTC teams that we also have a hand in helping out as part of our outreach. And it's a really great program. If any of you have kids or grandkids, I highly recommend that you join robotics because there's just so much that you can learn on a robotics team, be it people skills, be it technical skills, any kind of skills. I guarantee you're going to learn some of it on a robotics team. Yeah.
Well, yeah. We're going to keep it very brief. So thank you again to Cherryland Electric. We could talk for hours about this. If you want to come talk to us more, we're set up over there. So thank you.
Come see our robot Saturn.
I've got a couple questions. Now, over there, did you say it was 600 or 6,000 teams that were competing?
600.
600, okay. And they were from all over the world, and the team that won was from Israel?
Yes.
Israel? Okay. So, very interesting. If you haven't seen it, just go see it. It's really, really neat. It's really inspiring to see these kids doing what they're doing. And they were talking about some of their competitors, and they all work together, and they give each other ideas, so it's not like a real cutthroat type thing. They're all working together, and it's really neat to see that. So, anyway. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Greg, do we have the election results yet? Okay, would you like to present them?
So the ballots have been counted, and we have the winners with respect to the 2 open board seats. First off, the at-large board seat. We have as follows. Mr. Terry Lautner received 2,668 votes. We also had dozens of write-in candidates with a grand total of 38 votes being cast for them, with no one write-in candidate obtaining more than 4 votes. Mr. Lautner, having obtained the most votes, is elected to the board. Congratulations. Moving on to the other open board seat, which is for Grand Traverse and Kalkaska counties. We have as follows. Mr. Gabriel Schneider has obtained 2,624 votes. Again, we also had dozens of write-in candidates with a grand total of 38 votes being cast for them, with no one candidate obtaining more than 4 votes. Therefore, Mr. Schneider, having obtained the most votes, is elected to the board. Congratulations.
Congratulations, Gabe and Terry. I'll ask the secretary to attach the certificate of inspection of the election to the minutes of this meeting. Before I introduce our CEO, Rachel, she's going to talk about the state of the co-op. I want to say a couple things. 1 year ago, Rachel took the helm. It's been exactly a year since she has been CEO after Tony Anderson retired. It has been a heck of a year in more ways than one, and I'm going to let her talk about that. But in working with her for this past year, we got together at least once a month before the board meeting to go over the agenda and all of that. And I've seen an up-close look at how Rachel operates. And she's going to talk a little bit about some of the challenges that we've had over the last year. And I wanted to come up with a word that I thought would describe Rachel. And the word I came up with is undaunted, courageous. This is the dictionary definition. Courageously resolute in the face of difficulty or danger, semicolon, not discouraged by much. So, in that, I present to you Rachel Johnson.
Thanks, Dave. I'm going to try really hard to live up to that. Yeah, it's been a year. It has been a year. So I'm going to give you the state of the co-op, but before I do that, I thought I would take just a second and give you a little bit of a personal update. As most of you know, because you are our most loyal members who show up at our annual meeting, a year ago on June 14th, I became the CEO of the co-op. 6 months later, on December 15th, I was diagnosed with breast cancer, which was an unexpected turn in my first year as your CEO. And it has been a tough year for me personally. So since that diagnosis, I have made it through 18 weeks of chemotherapy and 3 weeks ago, a double mastectomy. And I will be very honest with you when I say there have been so many moments over the last 6 months when I didn't believe I would be here to celebrate our successes with you tonight. So I am incredibly grateful to you for coming out and taking the time to spend time with us, because this is not something I take for granted. I also do just want to express my unbelievable gratitude to your board and employees for the support they've given me over this year. As you can imagine, there is nothing more exciting than finding out your new CEO has a major health crisis that they have to manage. But to your board's credit, they gave me all of the support I needed. When I told them I intend to continue to work full-time, they said, fine, whatever you need, let us know. And they have stepped up in helping to make sure that the co-op had leadership through my treatment times. In addition to that, and perhaps just as importantly, not that I expected anything less, but the team that you have working on your behalf at the co-op has shown up for me in amazing ways this year, and they've shown up for you in amazing ways, and I'll talk about some of those in just a couple minutes, but I want them to hear from me my unbelievable and undying gratitude. I am very lucky to get to be a part of a team with this caliber of human beings. So as I think about this experience and think about how I want to talk through what we've done this year, what I keep coming back to is a quote by Marcus Aurelius. The quote essentially says something like, "A blazing flame makes a blazing fire makes flame and brightness out of everything that is thrown into it. The idea here is that when we do really, really hard things, when we're thrown into the fire, we become brighter and better and more resilient and stronger because of it. I have felt that in my personal life this year. I have seen that in your team in the way that we have worked through several very significant challenges in our industry this year. So I want to focus on some of those with you tonight. I want to talk first about power supply, and I'm going to discuss Palisades and also some of the work we're doing in renewables and how we're working very hard to protect the reliability and affordability of your power supply. And then I want to talk about electric reliability, specifically the reliability of the distribution system that you trust us to maintain on your behalf. And then I want to end by talking about some challenges we see coming up with our co-op facilities and how we are addressing that for you in the coming year. So let's start with power supply. Because I know you're my most loyal members, I know you already know this, so just stick with me on it because we've talked about it a lot. But one of the most exciting things that happened for us last year was our opportunity to commit to purchase the output of the Palisades nuclear power plant on your behalf. That plant will be coming back online in the next year or two. And I want to talk just a little bit about what that means for you and for Michigan. The Palisades plant produces enough power to power 800,000 homes, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, regardless of whether it is raining, regardless of whether the wind is blowing, regardless of whether the sun is shining. That is the value that Palisades brings not just to your power supply portfolio, but to the reliability and stability of Michigan's electric grid. This is important in a time when we are decommissioning a lot of power generating resources in our region. So this commitment not only improves your power supply, it improves the reliability of Michigan's electric grid. And it does so while allowing us to secure that power, that carbon-free power, on your behalf at power supply rates that are flat or stable over the contract length. And that stability is another piece that I don't think we've talked enough about and explained the value of enough. We are sitting on the precipice of a time that I think will be defined by incredibly volatile power supply markets. That volatility is going to come from our exposure to natural gas prices, but it also comes from the basic economics of supply and demand, right? As we increasingly have a scarcity of supply, we're going to see upward pressure on the cost of electricity. Palisades is locking a part of your power supply in at a fixed rate that is only going to become more and more attractive the further we get into that contract. So this is good for you today, but what I'm really proud of is the fact that it's good for the next generation of co-op members as well. And that work was done very much by the support of our extended team at Wolverine, supported by your board members who represent you on the Wolverine Board of Directors. This is no small feat for Michigan's co-ops. The other exciting thing we have going on with power supply right now is we have 2 major solar projects under development also in Michigan, steel in the ground in Michigan, about 300 megawatts of solar that we are developing, half in southern Michigan, half in northern Michigan. To put that in perspective, that 300 megawatts represents about 3 times Cherryland's total energy needs. So about 3 times what we need to keep the lights on at Cherryland that we're developing in solar in Michigan that will complement the wind energy we already have in our portfolio and will also complement that 24/7, 365 carbon-free nuclear power we're going to get out of Palisades. All of these commitments do something very important, and I'm going to stop here and acknowledge a little comment that was made to me today, that someone said that I might be just turned into a total liberal who's too into the renewables, and I appreciate what you were trying to say, but let me give you a different perspective on this. We now operate in a state with a mandate that we get 100% of your power supply from carbon-free sources by 2040. It is my job, it is your team's job at Wolverine to make sure that we do that on your behalf in a way that, again, attends to reliability and affordability. These commitments that we have made put us on a path to have the lowest carbon footprint of any utility in the state of Michigan by 2030. I'm going to say that to you one more time. You, as co-op members, belong to a utility that is on a path to have the lowest carbon footprint of any utility in the state of Michigan by the end of this decade. Thank you. And a lot of that work happened over the last year in order to secure that on our behalf. And so it's something that I am incredibly grateful for. And that is one place where I sleep easy at night, knowing that we have a smart, savvy team that is ready for the challenges that these power supply markets are putting in our place and is finding good solutions on behalf of our members. The second thing that I want to talk to you about tonight is electric reliability. And it's really easy when we talk about our electric reliability to kind of think about like big picture, big G grid stuff, right? Like the nation's grid being reliable. But I'm going to talk about something a little closer to home. I want to talk about what we've done to make sure that the 3,400 miles of line that we maintain on your behalf are best in class. And when I say best in class, y'all, I mean best in class. Here is what happened for us in 2023. When we got to the end of the year and looked at our reliability numbers, what we realized is we had reached the pinnacle of 99.99. We kept the lights on for our members 99.99% of the time. We're going to do a little math. Don't worry, it's not hard. Just ask the robotics team. They can do it too. That's right. Here's how this math works. We take the total number of outage minutes that happen over the course of the entire year, and we divide it by the total number of members we serve, and we get to a number. And the number we got to at the end of 2023 was this. Our members, on average, experienced 43 minutes of outages in 2023. To put that in context for you, the statewide average was 188 minutes per customer over the year. Yes, can we clap to that? We're not just best in class, we are leaving them in the dust in class, right? Like they can't even see us because we're so far ahead of them. And that is not something that just happens. That is the result of years of diligence from the team that works on your behalf here. It's our engineering teams, it's the linemen that come out and help, whether it's building the system, upgrading the system, fixing the system when something goes wrong. It's every single person who shows up at Cherryland every day passionate about keeping the lights on for our members. And that's why I get to stand in front of you and say, when everyone else had 188 minutes of outages last year, we had 43. The thing is, and I want to just make this very, very clear, that we don't want to backslide from there. We are so committed to continuing to deliver this level of reliability to you. Here are a couple things we're doing in that space. One, many of you probably already know, we are replacing our metering system. The old system has started to fail, which is unacceptable. It's 20-year-old technology. But in addition to that, the technology is really limited in terms of what it can do for us. The new metering system is not only more reliable, it will give us more data to catch problems before they become outages and to respond to them when they do become outages. So this is going to make us even better. The other thing that we've done this year that I'm really excited about, we're at the beginning stages of, is starting to really grapple with what it means to have cybersecurity be so closely related to grid security and resiliency. We've restructured the organization just a little bit. We created a chief operating officer position. Our long-term engineering and operations manager, Frank Sipker, took that role. And as a part of that restructuring, we moved IT, which had been an independent department, into operations and engineering so that our engineering technology and information technology are all housed under one manager. That means when we're making investments in the grid, we're making those investments through the lens of, is this secure against cyber threats on behalf of our members? So a really important structural change we made on your behalf. As I look at all the things we've done to get to where we are with reliability and all the things we're doing to protect that reliability going forward, there is one really hard thing that I have to be honest with you about, and that is it's only starting to cost more and more and more to deliver those outcomes to you. We operate under kind of a five-year look forward in terms of the investments we intend to make in our system. Right now, without necessarily doing more over the next 5 years than what we've done over the last 5 years, so just continuing our tree trimming and our routine maintenance and our routine upgrades, it's going to cost us twice as much to do a project in this year than it would have 2 years ago. It's going to cost us twice as much to do that project in 2 years than it would have 3 years ago. This is just the cost of us doing business. And so the other hard thing we're looking at the co-op is how do we grapple with this tension between providing best-in-class service and the service that I expect you to expect, while recognizing that we also want to keep our rates as affordable for you as possible. And our accounting team is working really hard on that problem. And the reality is we're going to have to continue to increase rates in order to continue to invest in our system. There is not a way around that. But what we can do on your behalf is try to minimize those rate increases as much as we can. And we're looking at whether it's creative financing approaches, a different approach to equity management, a different approach to capital credit management. What are all the tools available to us to help soften that for you while not letting ourselves backslide as it pertains to electric reliability? And that will be an important challenge we'll continue to grapple with in the upcoming year. The last thing that I wanted to talk to you about tonight is to just kind of give you a heads up on something that's kind of interesting. It feels like it popped up fast, but it's burning really bright really fast, which is we have outgrown our current facilities. We should have seen it coming. It's not entirely unexpected, but it feels like it happened really fast. So our headquarters over here in Grand were built in the 1970s. Since that time, we've had a 135% increase in the number of members we serve, a 75% increase in the facilities that we're responsible for, so the lines and poles, et cetera, that we're responsible for. All the equipment we use is bigger, we have more of it, and we are just seeing such rapid growth on our system that we have to have inventory to meet, and we basically have just outgrown our facility. We have about 10 acres that we can use over there, and we don't have enough room there to house everything. The way we're handling that in the short term on your behalf is we'll just call it bootstrapping and band-aiding. We have basically secured areas outside of our facilities to store everything from trucks to equipment we don't use all the time to anything that needs to be kind of undercover that we don't want out exposed to the elements on our current facilities. And that's a good short-term solution, but it's a really bad long-term solution. Because in the long term, we don't want to have a bunch of equipment that you trust us to have not kind of inside the fence, not inside our physical control. So what we're looking at right now is like, what is the next 50-year facility solution look like for our members? So in the 70s, they put in place a 50-year solution and it got us there, but it's not going to get us into the next 50 years. We're exploring two different paths. One path is what would it take to make our current facilities work better for us? Is there a way to free up space there to get everything back home, right? The other one is what would it take to potentially build new facilities on a bigger piece of property? As we explore both of those options, obviously we're going to look at what will it cost? What are the pros and cons of each one? My goal, and the board's goal, is that sometime in the next 12 months, we would know which path we're on. That doesn't necessarily mean we have to move fast. We're not going to do a massive remodel of our building or build a new building next year. But the sooner we know what path we're on, the better we can be responsible stewards of your money. Because what keeps me up at night right now with this is the fact that I see us throwing bad money after bad money, right? When I look at us moving things all over and renting facilities here and begging and borrow over here, none of those are getting us any closer to a long-term solution, but they're costing you money. And so we're trying to figure out which path are we on so we can start investing our money towards that end goal. And you'll hear us talk more about that this year, so I wanted to start that conversation tonight. So those are the things that we've been working on your behalf over the last year and the things that we have coming up in the next year. And I want to just wrap it back around to where I started and say, it could be pretty easy to, I think, get overwhelmed with the challenges facing our industry, whether it's challenges related to a very, very rapid transformation of how we generate electricity, challenges related to managing cost in an incredibly complex interest rate and supply chain environment, challenges related to, I'm not looking at you guys, but challenges related to legislative and regulatory movements that make our job a little harder, not from any of our current delegation, I promise you. Those things are really, really hard. And at the same time, I don't worry about them because we have the luxury here at Cherryland of having a team that has been made brighter and stronger by the fires that they've been thrown into. These are the people that run toward the storm, not away from the storm. And I genuinely believe it is the absolute best team in the business, and it is my unbelievable privilege to get to be a part of that team and lead them on your behalf. So we will look forward to continuing to deliver excellent outcomes in challenging times for our members. And I assure you, it is a good day to be a Cherryland member. So with that, I would love to open it up to you all for questions. I've got people roaming with mics, so if you have a question, let them get the mic to you just so everyone can hear the question. And for those of you who are at home online, feel free to stick your question in the comments and someone will read them on your behalf.
Hi. How long is the contract with Palisades good till?
It's about a 30-year contract, so several decades. And there are several provisions in there that give us more optionality into the future as well. So one of the neat things about the Palisades site is that the current owner, Holtec, has identified it as a site that they might look at developing advanced small modular nuclear reactors. And as kind of participants in Palisades, we have the opportunity to potentially even secure that on your behalf in the future as well. So it's not only the optionality that we have, or excuse me, not only what we've secured today, but also the things that it gives us the potential to add in the future as well.
I'm just wondering, what do they plan to do with the nuclear waste when they're done? Where is that going to go then?
I might have to ask the team at Wolverine to weigh in on the specifics of the operational side of that.
So as it pertains to nuclear waste, currently all across the country with the nuclear fleet, all of the waste from the power plant is stored on site and will remain on site until if we find some national solution to store it somewhere else. But Holtec, the current plant owner, they are very experienced. It's what their, I would say, bread and butter business is to store nuclear waste. And so there are very tight regulations around how that's stored, how it's secured, and it remains on site. And it takes up a very small footprint on the power plant site, but it will remain on site for the foreseeable future.
And where is the Palisades? I'm not familiar with that. I guess I don't remember. Wasn't it once a power plant and then they decommissioned it?
So it was never decommissioned. It did retire. The power plant is it's on the Lake Michigan shoreline, just south of Holland, about 30 miles south of Holland on Lake Michigan. It retired in 2022, and it is now slated to restart here in the next year to 18 months.
There it is. Within this last year, you've rolled out your time of use program. I'm just wondering how popular that's been and what your reaction to the time of use program has been.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. So when we restructured our rates about a year ago, one of the things we offered is an optional time of use. And the way that works is people who opt into that program pay more when they are using power during our peak times, and they pay less when they are using power off peak. And, you know, it's an interesting question. It has been much less popular than what we expected it to be. Not that I expected there to be a huge uptick, but I think we have less than 100 people on that rate right now. What happens when someone indicates an interest, they let us know. We will run like several months of their usage through a calculator and let them know, here's what you would have either saved or spent more on if you moved to this rate. And then we give them tips and tricks for how they could shift their usage in order to take advantage of the rate. Something in that, and I think in that process makes people realize how, I think that they get to a point where they realize how big a changes they would actually have to make to save money on a time of use rate. So it hasn't been as popular as I think we expected it to be, but it will continue to be a part of our rate offerings because it does work for some people, and it's great for us to be able to offer it for the people it works for. And keep in mind, when someone shifts their usage off peak, we are all saving money. We're just passing part of that savings along to the person who's able to shift their usage off peak, because peak power is the most expensive power we use. So thank you for that question.
Thank you. Can you explain the capabilities of the new residential metering system besides just notifying when the power is out?
Yeah. So the biggest improvement we get with the new metering system, the old metering system is what's known as a power line carrier system. Its only ability to communicate with the office was to communicate over the power lines. It communicated a couple times a day, and we had somewhat limited data transfer capabilities with that metering system. The new metering system communicates with us wirelessly, which gives us better data transfer capabilities, so we're able to transfer more data more frequently to the office and make it available to our members in Smart Hub. In addition to that, the meters can communicate with each other, so if something happens in one meter, it can let another meter know I'm having a problem, and then that meter can reach out to the office and be like, hey, my buddy at the house next door is having a problem. So it's a very, very robust communication system that's no longer dependent on having power from the co-op to communicate. That's the biggest advancement we get out of it, tied to the amount of data we'll have. One of the things we've begun thinking about as a co-op, although it's still very early in this kind of strategic process, how do we start to use all that data as a part of our business decision making? And I think once we see what kind of data we get, we'll be able to do even more with that data in terms of business decision making. But right now what it's going to do is it's going to let us see more about what's going out on our system, communicate to us more frequently, communicate to us when it doesn't have power or when it's getting interruptions in power in a way that the old metering system just wasn't capable of doing.
Speaking of data,
Where are we
is
speaking
it
of?
our data, the customer's data, your data? Who,
Yeah,
like,
I
who you share that with?
You know what, I'm going to actually take that question and go just a slightly different direction than you're going with it, Charlie, but I appreciate it. First of all, there is no you and me in a co-op. There's only an us. Your data is my data, Charlie, and I think of it that way. And this is a space where I will continue to say that I think one of the biggest risks that we manage on your behalf is related to the security of, whether it's the security of the grid or the security of your data, and it's something we take very, very seriously. We will not share your data without your permission. When it comes in, we might use it to make decisions, again, about where we make investments, because we can see that there's something going on where that line needs upgraded, or that line's is clearly overloaded and needs to have more capacity than it has. But that's all we're going to do with your data. But the more important thing is the work we're doing to make sure that your data is as protected as we can make it, because that is, I genuinely believe, one of the biggest risks most organizations face today.
Can you give us some insights into, you must have run some numbers on like best case, worst case of people converting to electric vehicles and how that's going to affect the system and the ability to even supply what might be needed?
Yeah, thank you for that question. And I'll expand it beyond electric vehicles and say there are a lot of, we live in an increasingly energy intensive world, right? And there's so many things in motion that move us towards using more electricity, whether it's for transportation or it's data centers or Bitcoin mining centers or AI. Like, we just live in a very increasingly energy intensive environment. And certainly it's something that we are thinking about. I know it's something that the team at Wolverine is thinking about. How do we make sure we have enough power available, not just to manage the system today, but to manage potential future growth on the system? Certainly the commitment we've made at Palisades and the commitment we're making in renewables gives us some space to grow our sales and still be able to meet our members' expectations as it pertains to low carbon, but also reliable energy. So yes, but you didn't ask this, but I'll just say it since I have a microphone. Here's my big gripe. We know how to, we know how to generate electricity to serve whatever growth there might be, whether that's from transportation or from data centers. Right now, our hands are pretty tied in terms of what we can build, where we can build it, and how we can build it, and how fast we can build it, and how fast we can interconnect it. And those are many of those things very much outside of our control. These are not hard engineering problems. We have the capability to do it. What we don't have is the will. So, I don't know what comes first, the chicken or the egg. Do we have to wait until growth on the system drives some sort of a massive rolling blackout to realize we need to build to serve it? Or can we be more proactive and build in advance of growth we know is coming? We're ready to build in advance of growth we know is coming, but I can't answer whether or not the political will is there to do that. And that is definitely something that keeps me up at night, which is unfortunate.
Hello. I'm one of those users who opted into the time of use billing, and I have a question. When before we opted in, you did some numbers for us and told it looked like we would save about 2 or 3% on our electric bill based on our historical usage. But when we actually started the time of use billing, we changed our habits a little bit. We tried to run our clothes dryer during non-peak times. We have an EV, we charge our EV during non-peak times, and I think we're actually reducing our bill maybe 30%. It's a lot bigger than what you predicted because of changes in behavior. Have you guys done any calculations on all of us that are doing time of use billing to see how much the average person is saving using that program?
We have not done that in that way, but we can, and maybe we will, and I'll share it with you in an upcoming manager's column, so thank you for that. But to your point, one thing that we don't talk a lot about, that time of use rate is really it's an early opportunity to think about EV charging in a different way. I don't know that most people in their homes, in terms of air conditioning and washing and drying and things like that, will shift their energy enough to see big savings. But when you think about someone purchasing an EV and plugging it into a wall, if they can set that EV to charge off peak, they can start to see the types of savings that you're describing, and we can benefit the co-op by moving that load, so to your point about growth and load, moving that load to a time when we have more ample power available. So I think we will continue to see the kinds of numbers you're describing for people who are not just kind of living in their same home, doing their same things, but adding other things in like an EV. It's definitely an opportunity. And one thing we do whenever, because we do rebates for EVs, so we tend to know when someone is getting an electric vehicle, we will oftentimes also talk to them at that point about whether they want to go on the time of use rate, because it does tend to work very, very well for those who own an electric vehicle and charge it at home. Well, I thank you all for the questions. I will be around after the meeting, but I will hand it back over to Dave to close us out.
Thank you, Rachel. You know, one of the things being on the board that I always try to keep in mind, it's very easy, I don't want to say get caught in the weeds, but all the different details that we have to deal with, the regulations and the forward-looking things that we have to be aware of. But the three things that I always try to keep in mind, at least for you members, is that when you wake up in the morning and you turn on that light, that light is going to come on. That's our mission in life right now, is to make sure that your electricity is safe, it's reliable, and it's affordable. And we have to keep that in mind as we go through all these hoops, that we don't get too caught up, but that's our 99.99 mission, is to get even better. Let's try to get to 5, if we can. So, okay. Is there any unfinished business that we have not discussed? Is there any new business? If not, seeing that there is no other business to be discussed, I will declare this meeting adjourned. Thank you for attending. Good job, Rachel. Really well done.